Have you ever sat down to play a video game, read a book, or watch a movie that you used to love more than anything, only to realize that you are staring at the screen feeling absolutely nothing, as if the color has been drained out of the experience and you are just going through the motions waiting for a spark that never comes? It is a quiet and confusing realization that leaves many people wondering if they have somehow forgotten how to be happy, or if the person they used to be has simply faded away. If you have been feeling this heavy sense of disconnection, I want you to know that you are safe here, and more importantly, you are not the only one navigating this gray landscape. Welcome, and let's take a moment to just breathe and look at this together, not as a problem to be frantically fixed, but as a human experience to be understood. There is a word you might have seen floating around online called anhedonia, and while it sounds clinical and perhaps a little intimidating, it is simply a term used to describe that loss of interest or pleasure in activities that once brought joy. But we don't need to use technical labels to understand the feeling because the feeling itself is visceral and real. It is the sensation of looking at a beautiful sunset and knowing it is beautiful intellectually, but not feeling that swell of awe in your chest. It is laughing at a joke because you know you are supposed to, while inside the silence remains untouched. Many people instinctively panic when they feel this, assuming it means they are broken or that they have become ungrateful for the good things in their lives. But often, this numbness is not a sign of a defect, but rather a signal from a tired system that has been running on overdrive for far too long. This is where we often misunderstand what is happening, because we tend to think of enjoyment as something that should be automatic, like breathing, but the capacity to feel joy actually requires a certain amount of emotional energy, and if your reserves are depleted, the lights simply cannot turn on. Think of it like a house where too many appliances are plugged in at once. Eventually, the circuit breaker trips, not to damage the house, but to protect it from overheating. In many ways, that feeling of flatness might be your mind's way of tripping the breaker, stepping back to preserve what little energy is left. It is worth considering how much we carry in our modern lives, often without realizing the weight of it. We live in a time of constant input, where our phones and screens demand our attention every waking second, and there is a relentless pressure to be productive, to be informed, and to be constantly improving. Under this kind of sustained pressure, the brain can enter a state of survival where it prioritizes the bare essentials. Getting up, going to work, feeding the family, and in that survival mode, joy is often categorized as a luxury item that is the first to be jettisoned. This is the part many people don't talk about, the way that being functional can actually be the enemy of being alive. You might be meeting all your deadlines, paying your bills, and smiling at the right times, yet feel completely hollow, and that discrepancy can be incredibly isolating. You look around and see others appearing to enjoy their lives, posting highlights of their vacations or their hobbies, and the comparison deepens the wound. It is easy to think, why can they feel that, and I can't? But what we often forget is that we are seeing their curated moments, not their internal reality. Many of the people smiling in photographs are also navigating their own seasons of winter, their own periods of quiet numbness. It is also important to acknowledge that sometimes we simply outgrow the things we used to love, and that transition can be mourning in disguise. The video games that thrilled you at 15 might not offer the same escape at 25 or 40 because your needs have changed, and your mind is hungry for a different kind of nourishment that you haven't identified yet. But because we find comfort in familiarity, we keep returning to the old habits, the old shows, and the old hobbies, trying to squeeze the same juice out of a dry lemon, and then we blame ourselves when it tastes bitter. There is also a subtle truth here that is often missed, which is the role of emotional perfectionism. We often put immense pressure on ourselves to relax correctly. We sit down on a Friday night and think, I have 2 hours to relax. I must enjoy this movie immediately because this is my only free time. That pressure to perform, even in our leisure time, creates a distinct anxiety that kills the very joy we are chasing. Joy is shy. It rarely comes when summoned by a command. It tends to land softly when we aren't looking, but if we are aggressively gripping the remote control demanding to be entertained, the mind tenses up, creating a barrier to the very feeling we want. This is why you might find yourself scrolling through a streaming service for an hour, unable to pick anything, because the stakes feel oddly high. If you pick the wrong thing, you've wasted your chance to feel good. That paralysis is not laziness. It is a symptom of a mind that is trying too hard to get it right. Furthermore, we must consider the impact of chronic, low-level stress. Unlike a sudden crisis where we know we are stressed, chronic stress is like a background hum that we eventually stop hearing, but it is always there, vibrating through our nervous system. When the body is in a state of subtle vigilance, always waiting for the next email, the next problem, or the next bill, it cannot soften enough to let pleasure in. Enjoyment requires safety. To lose yourself in a book or a song, you have to let your guard down. And if your subconscious feels that the world is too demanding or too chaotic, it will keep your guard up, making true immersion impossible. It can feel like you are watching your life through a pane of glass. You can see the joy, you can describe it, but you cannot touch it. And I want to reassure you that this feeling, as heavy as it is, does not make you a bad person. It does not make you uninteresting. It makes you human. There is a deep misconception that we are designed to be happy all the time, or that a lack of happiness equals a presence of failure. But the human emotional spectrum is vast, and there are seasons for everything. There are seasons of high summer where everything is vibrant and easy, and there are seasons of deep winter where the ground is hard and nothing grows. We generally accept this in nature, yet we refuse to accept it in ourselves. When the leaves fall off the trees, we don't scream at the trees for being broken. We understand that they are conserving energy for a future spring. Your numbness might just be your winter. It might be a time of dormancy where deep restoration is happening beneath the surface, even if it looks like nothing is happening from the outside. Another aspect that experts often describe is the role of dopamine exhaustion. We live in an environment that is engineered to trigger our reward systems constantly. Social media likes, infinite scrolling, fast-paced videos, immediate notifications. Over time, this constant flooding can desensitize us. If you eat your favorite dessert for every meal, eventually, it stops tasting sweet. In the same way, if our brains are constantly overfed with cheap, fast digital stimulation, the slower, quieter pleasures of reading a book or going for a walk can feel agonizingly dull by comparison. This isn't a moral failing. It is a biological adaptation. Your brain has adjusted to a high baseline of noise, so silence feels empty. The good news, which we will get to gently, is that this sensitivity can return, but it often requires a period of recalibration that feels uncomfortable at first. It requires sitting with the boredom, which is something we have largely forgotten how to do. We treat boredom as an emergency, reaching for our phones the second there is a lull in conversation or a commercial break. But boredom is often the soil in which the seeds of interest are planted. If we never let ourselves be bored, we never create the space for curiosity to grow back. This brings us to a part of the experience that is rarely discussed, the grief of the lost self. When you can't enjoy things, you miss the version of you that was passionate and enthusiastic. You might look at old photos and think, who was that person? That grief is valid. It is okay to be sad that you don't feel like yourself right now. Acknowledging that sadness is actually a way of thawing the ice. By admitting, I am sad that I can't feel joy, you are, ironically, feeling something. You are connecting with your own experience, even if that experience is painful. It is a start. It is better than the numb indifference. Many people find that when they stop fighting the numbness, when they stop trying to force themselves to have fun, the pressure releases slightly. It is the difference between floating in water and thrashing against the waves. If you accept that right now, in this moment, movies are just moving pictures and music is just noise, you stop the secondary cycle of shame. You stop beating yourself up for not having fun, which ironically frees up a tiny bit of energy. You might find that enjoyment returns not in a grand explosion of fireworks, but in very small, quiet moments that you almost miss. It might be the warmth of a coffee mug in your hands, not the taste of the coffee, just the warmth. It might be the way the light hits the floor in the afternoon. These micro-moments are often the first signs that the circuit breaker is resetting. They are not the big, passionate hobbies you used to have, and that is okay. You don't need to run a marathon of joy. You just need to notice one small thing that doesn't feel terrible. And if even that feels out of reach right now, that is okay too. Your only job right now is to be kind to yourself while you weather this. There is no deadline for when you have to be fun again. There is no quota of happiness you have to meet to justify your existence. You are worthy of love and care even when you are flat, even when you are unproductive, and even when you are not lighting up the room. In fact, offering yourself compassion when you feel you least deserve it is perhaps the most powerful thing you can do. It is easy to love ourselves when we are winning and happy. It is a true act of friendship to love ourselves when we are gray and quiet. So, if you are sitting there feeling like you have lost your spark, please know that the spark is not gone. It is simply buried under layers of exhaustion, stress, and protection. It is waiting for the storm to pass. It is waiting for you to feel safe enough to come out again. Until then, you do not need to fake it. You do not need to perform joy for anyone else's benefit. You are allowed to just be here exactly as you are. The colors will come back, usually when you stop straining your eyes trying to see them. Be patient with your winter. It has its own purpose, and it will not last forever. If this conversation made you feel a little less alone in that gray space, or if it helped you understand your own feelings just a fraction more, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being gentle with yourself.